Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say?
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin, girl.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
We're live. So welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's a little bit of a different beginning today, but that's okay. It is October the 25th, and I'm here with Brent Marchant. He is our great, wonderful, the Good Media Network movie critic, and we are going to be talking about all the movies this October. So I'm going to share my screen with you because Brent, he actually doesn't have a picture. So we are going to share your screen, and we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you what he looks like because he's always hidden. And if you like what you hear today, just hit the like button at the bottom, please. That'd be great. We would appreciate that. And let me just take you over to where I think I should have your picture, but I don't. Look at that. Oh my goodness, Brent. Where did it go?
Well, the movie pictures are more interesting to look at than I am anyway, so.
Yeah, but that's what I'm looking for is our movie pictures. Now, you don't want to just look at me for the whole time listening to you, I don't think. Maybe they do, I don't know, I doubt it. Let me see, where did they go? Where did you guys go? I had your picture right there. I apologize, everybody. I really do. Like, I hit a button on my computer today that wiped everything, and it's just being really, really strange. So Brent, at the moment, I'm not going to share the screen. Why don't we just start talking about the movies, and I'll look around and see if I can't find a way to get them.
Okay. Well, our first film today is called Love Gilda. And this is a documentary about the life and times of comedian Gilda Radner, who was the part of the first cast of Saturday Night Live, and went on to make a number of movies afterward. And it's a really warm and touching film that talks about how she just really kind of changed the face of comedy in America starting in the 1970s and 80s. And went on to inspire a lot of other comedians who have since patterned their routine and work after her. It's finishing up its run in theaters just about now, but it's available for on-demand viewing on a whole bunch of platforms. So if it's not playing in your city, or if it's already closed in your city, there's plenty of ways to see it. So you can just go to the movie's website, which I believe is lovegilda.com, and you can find links to all kinds of ways to see it at home. This is a really well put together movie featuring a lot of, in some cases, very rare archive footage from her early days when she was involved with a cast production of Godspell, and then involved with Second City in Toronto, and then as a cast member of the National Lampoon Radio Hour, excuse me, before she went on to become, the big hit with Saturday Night Live. And for those of us who are old enough to remember, what it was like to grow up with her, it's really very kind of nostalgic and fun to see some of these old routines brought back to life, with her portraying some of her characters like Emily Latella and Rosanna and Baba Wawa, people like that. And she really was quite funny. And it's really, you'll get a lot of chuckles watching what she did. The film then also goes on to talk about her later days in which she was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. Mm-hmm. And, it's one of those things where you kind of, at the time, a lot of us kind of looked at it and said, how can life be so cruel? Somebody so talented and so young. I mean, she was only in her late 30s when she was diagnosed. But it almost, launched almost a second career for her when she became involved with a number of cancer support groups. She launched a number of programs with her husband, Gene Wilder, to get help and promote screening for women who were in high-risk groups. And that eventually led to the formation of Gilda's Club, which is a support network with organizations all throughout the country where people can get together to talk about their illness with family and friends, and do so in a spirit of friendship and fun and so forth, just like Gilda was herself.
I love
So,
Gilda. You know, I really just adored her. And it's bringing tears to my eyes for some reason. I'm just imagining her jumping up on the bed, you know, like just crazy Gilda, who was just so out there and so outrageous at times. And you think, how can somebody so alive and so fun and so childlike get cancer? Like, how does that happen to somebody?
exactly.
You know, it's not supposed to happen that way. It's supposed to happen for the people who are all negative and, you know, not the happy ones.
But it was interesting in the fact that, you know, if they say that laughter is the best medicine, you know, she ended up bringing that not only to those who were healthy, but in the end also to the people who probably needed to get it the most, her fellow cancer patients. She also took a very bold move after she had been diagnosed and was out of circulation for a while, and she tried to start making a comeback when she was in remission. She approached one of her former colleagues from Saturday Night Live and said, I want you to help me do something that has never been done before. And he said, what's that? She goes, I want you to help me make cancer funny.
Oh, wow.
Which at the time was practically unthinkable. I mean,
yeah.
we didn't talk about that. She did it, and she pulled it off brilliantly. So, I mean, while it's certainly not a laughing matter for a lot of people now, it certainly opened up a door to help people understand that, you know, you can take a different approach to this than just hanging your head down all the time and saying, oh, woe is me, I can't do anything about this.
Yeah.
So she really was a groundbreaker in so many different ways, you know, both in terms of the routines that she did and the kinds of material that she covered. I mean, she was the first person to say bitch on television and get away with it. You know, I mean, really just such a tremendous talent. And this film really showcases what she did. And it's the kind of film that's going to evoke laughter, tears, the whole range of emotions. It's really very well put together. So I really recommend this one highly.
I just want to let everybody know, if you're looking at this screen today, there's a little bit different Frankie sent some more. One is my computer's messed up and I'm unable to share my screen with you, which I wish I could, because I have all these amazing movie posters that, you know, could be up there. And maybe, Brent, you could actually share your screen and put it up if you have it. You might think about that as you're talking. So I apologize for that going up. But Brent Marchant is the Good Radio Network's movie correspondent and critic, and we are talking about the movies from this October, starting with Gilda, and we're going to be talking about several more. So I apologize if you're just staring at moi's face, but it's not even a good one today. Oh my God, I had a bad hair day. Actually, right after this, I'm going to the hairdresser. So you have to put up with it. But you'll be able to listen to the podcast even if you don't watch this, and definitely get a lot of great information from it. So possibly Brent can share. He can get his notes up and he'll be able to share it soon. And you will see a few little things, a few little tricks. So that'd be great. Oh, and if you like, you know, hit the like button if you like what you're hearing, and hit the wow button if you know, feel a little bit wowed. And we both really appreciate it. And thank you for your support today, especially when things are going crappy. It's better to have that kind of support. Okay, Brent.
Okay. So let's see.
Iconic Tim Horton cup if you're Canadian.
There we go. Can we see that now?
Yeah, now we can see it. There we go.
We have the Love Gilda poster on the left. Yeah. Okay. So yes, this is a lot of fun. Go see it. I think you'll really enjoy it, especially those of us, again, who are of a certain age. So the next film is a movie that's been playing in theaters for a couple weeks, and that's the immensely popular remake of A Star is Born, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. This is a classic story that's been told now. This is the fourth incarnation of it, and tells the story of a troubled artist, in this case a rock star, played by Bradley Cooper, who helps to launch the career of an aspiring and extremely talented young singer-songwriter played by Lady Gaga. And their sort of very tumultuous relationship with one another that's both has artistic and romantic components to it. And basically, it shows that, what it means to learn how to manage success, and learning how to um, handle everything that comes with fame and what comes with popularity. This is a tremendous vehicle for launching the leading lady portion of Lady Gaga's career. She's done a few small parts up to this point, but this is the
Well,
first.
in her acting career, let's say, not her musical career.
Yeah, I mean,
she's a mega star.
It's a tremendous performance because she has to both sing and act, and she does both, so extremely
brilliantly.
well. Yeah, she really does.
Amazing. She's so believable. She doesn't seem like she's acting. She said she went to acting school. Bradley made her go to acting school and do all this stuff. But she just looks, first of all, I have to say how amazing she looks with her real hair, because delightful, right? She's just adorable. Yes. Absolutely adorable. And then you see her right after in the interviews with that blonde back, and I'm like, no, why did you do that? Because honestly, she looks really cute with her natural. But just going back, like, Bradley was great. He was pretty good, as a singer. But she's obviously she's brilliant as a singer, but as an actress, I loved this movie. Who did the last one? Was it? That was
the Barbra Streisand, version back in 1976.
Yeah, but this is like, I didn't think they could do a better job. Like, I really did. Oh, how are you going to remake this again? Loved it.
Well, it's the only disappointment I had is it didn't really do a whole lot of, it didn't really cover a whole lot of new ground compared to the previous versions. So I was hoping for something a little bit more different. This seems to follow the tried and true storyline from its predecessor versions, but it was still, very well done. This was Bradley Cooper's directorial debut. And I thought he did a fine job. I think he's got a very promising career as a director for the future. So, this is good. I'd say
I highly recommend you go see it. And here's the thing, Brent. I don't know, like, you live in Chicago and I live in Toronto, and if Chicago prices are like Toronto prices, it's about $45 for a couple to go see a movie and have some popcorn and a drink,
Mm-hmm.
And $45 is a lot of money. And to go and waste your money, let's say, on something that's not great. That's what's so great to have these reviews, so that people, if money is tight and it's dear to you, but you really love the movie theater, which, like we do, here's a chance to go see a really good movie. We're going to talk about some really great movies, and we're going to, in a little bit, we're going to talk about a really bad movie that's being, touted as really good. And we're going to say, don't go see it, even though I wasted my money on it. But like, what are prices in Chicago?
Well, it varies depending upon the theater chain and also what time of day that you're going.
Mm-hmm.
I like to go early in the day because it's very cheap.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, we usually go at noon, 12:30. In
the
afternoon. That's our usual time, because it's empty-ish, right?
Yeah.
We like to go when it's kind of empty, but the prices are the same. It's still, I guess what gets you is the $20 for popcorn and stuff.
Well, that's where they make their money.
Yeah, that's where they make their money. I think tickets are around 12 something each, maybe something like that. And another year we're going to get seniors prices maybe, but it's still a chunk of change, because I like to go to the movies every weekend, and sometimes we go twice a weekend. That's a lot of money.
Well, yeah, I would say here, if you go to an early show, it ranges between like $6 and $12.
Okay.
If you go later in the day or you go in the evening, it's going to cost you more. If you're going to see something that's in 3D, it's even more than that.
Yeah, and of course.
But I personally, I like going early because, as you say, it's not crowded, it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not having to deal with people talking.
Yes. Yes.
Which I tend to be rather unkind to my fellow movie guests. If they start making too much noise, I won't hesitate to tell them, please keep their comments.
Yeah, well, same here. Same with us. We're kind of like that. We're that's because, like, we're cinephiles, right? Like, you just really want to see the movie, and you don't want to hear other people talk, Sally, whoever, talking in the background. But I think that's important. You want the big experience, and you want a good experience. So if you are paying big bucks like we are, then I suggest that, you listen to these reviews, and you can pick and choose what interests you, but at least that when you're going to go, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. And you're certainly not going to be disappointed by Star is Born.
Well, and one other thing I try to do with the films that I review here too is I try to pick films where there's something a little more to it than just the entertainment value. Something where there's going to be some insights and some meaning that you don't necessarily get with something that's purely popcorn fluff entertainment
Yeah.
sorts of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I do those too, but I try to throw in a little bit of extra
Yeah.
with what I'm reviewing. So
I was surprised you didn't do Smallfoot. No, I'm just kidding.
okay, so moving on, I have two pictures that are really good choices for Halloween.
Yeah.
First one is the movie Venom, starring Tom Hardy. It's a very kind of offbeat superhero movie. In many ways, some have said even like the anti-hero movie, because his character is ends up being fused with a creature that's not necessarily the most kind to fellow human beings, but fortunately, Tom Hardy's character gets to sort of step in and show him the ways of what it's like to be on planet Earth and dealing with humans. So
No, it's kind of Deadpoolish in a way.
it really is. I described it as being
fun.
like Deadpool light.
Yeah.
There's a lot of humor in it. Some of it's really very funny. It's not the kind of nonstop outrageous humor that you had in Deadpool, but you still had quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
And I definitely thought it was a kind of film that a lot of critics have been really pretty unkind to. They've been tearing it apart, saying, "Oh, this is terrible," and it doesn't make any sense, and so forth. But I didn't
I actually
find that
liked
at all.
it. I loved it.
I thought it was a lot of fun.
I did too.
It's it does take a little bit of time to kind of find its traction, but I was willing to give it time because this is a new franchise in the Marvel superhero comics series. So I was willing to kind of like cut it some slack. So but the story basically it's interesting that in the course of the story, Tom Hardy's character, he plays an investigative reporter who ends up becoming fused with an alien creature who possesses tremendous superpowers, and they team up to use their joint abilities to take on the head of an evil corporation. And it's interesting to see how the off-worlder has to learn about the ways of living on Earth. And it's also interesting to see the way the two of them communicate with each other internally. I mean, it's in many ways I found to be like a very interesting metaphor for like learning how to follow your intuition.
Yeah. Favorite movie line?
I'm sorry?
What was your favorite line?
I liked it when they were having the conversation about Tom Hardy's ex-girlfriend, and the creature was saying, after all these seemingly dastardly things, he just comes out very sweetly and says, "I like her."
Yeah, I like her. Mine was, "I'm a loser on my planet too."
Yeah. So there's been some debate about whether or not this franchise is going to continue because it got such a bad critical response, but
No,
it
it
made
has
a ton of money. I mean, I believe when it opened, it was the had the largest October horror movie opening in history, I think, up until the recently released Halloween.
Yeah.
And I mean, that that's kind of hard to walk away from and say we're not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And
I love the iconic Stan Lee,
yes,
with the little puppy at the end. It was really cute, walking his dog.
Well, and also if you stay right to the very end, like with all of the Marvel movies, they give you a little teaser of something that's to come, and they showed you a clip from what is believed to be the next installment in the series, where Tom Hardy's character goes to visit a serial killer in jail that's supposed to lead to the next character in the series coming out, and that's going to be played by Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
So,
kind of Silence of the Lambs-ish, wasn't he? What was he called? Red?
I mean, I really don't think they're going to just abandon that and walk away from it pursuing it. So, I mean, that may be, if that one flops with critics too, that might be the last one in the series. But I think they're at least going to go ahead with the next one. So
yeah, I mean, Woody's been on a real roll, with 3 billboards and all that lately. Like, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I can easily see him doing a character like that and pulling it off really well. So
Absolutely. If you just joined us, you're listening to Frankie Sentence and More. You can't see us. Brent's sharing his screen right now. You can't see me and you can't see him, but you are looking at some movie posters of movies that we are reviewing right now. And if you like it, hit the like button. Just go below, hit the like, hit one of that little wow face, you know, with a big O in the middle of her face. Hit that. Come on, give us some traction. We appreciate that and love you for it. Okay, Brent, let's move on.
So my other offering for Halloween is a movie that that premiered in Chicago over the summer at the Cinepocalypse Film Festival called Await Further Instructions. And it's a British horror film that's part of an emerging genre that's known as smart horror.
Okay.
Where you have a horror film that's trying to do something more than just, you know, kill all the characters and figure out creative ways for doing so and get the body count as high as you possibly can. There's some intelligence behind this story in this one that basically it tells the story of a group of a family that gets together for Christmas. They don't particularly like each other very much, so that's always going to be tense enough as it is. But once they do get together, things get really tense when suddenly they find that they can't leave the house. That their house has been encased in some kind of impenetrable black substance that's covering all the doors and covering all the windows. The telephone service goes out, the internet service goes out. Basically, about the only thing that's left is the television, which comes up with the emergency channel that says, await further instructions.
Okay.
So they are all trapped in this house, and waiting to see what the television is going to tell them to do next. And as the story plays out, the instructions start to almost like pit the people one against another. It kind of reminded me of the old Twilight Zone episode from many years ago known as The Shelter.
Okay.
Where you had people who were fighting amongst themselves to survive. And it's a story that really has a lot of depth to it in terms of exploring ideas like how much are you willing to let your own free will and choice govern your actions? Or are you just going to be a sheep and follow what you're told to do? So there makes some very interesting commentary about the media, makes some very interesting commentary about authority, choice, free will. I mean, there's a lot more going on to this than just a scary movie.
Gotcha.
It also has a lot of really funny humor in it as well. So you get a really a full shopping cart full of stuff in this movie. It was recently released by Dark Sky Films, and it's playing in very limited runs in theaters. But again, it's one of these movies that's available for multiple viewing platforms over the internet. So if it's not playing in the theater in your town, or if it came and went already, look for it online, and you'll be able to find it there. And I really recommend this one highly.
So, like, out of 1 out of 10, if you don't like horror films, but you think it's a really good movie,
I would give this like around an 8.
Yeah? How scary is it?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily so much scary as it is kind of unnerving.
Oh, okay.
You know, there's times when you might find yourself sort of squirming in your seat saying, ew, that makes me definitely uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, certainly there are some things in it that are going to be intentionally kind of jumping at you to get a scare reaction, but I would say it's more of a squirm and, you know, try to find comfort in your seat sort of feeling.
Yeah, they're not trying to make you go, ah!
So I like this one a lot. And you know, when I see a film that does not get a whole lot of attention that is really good and deserves to get attention, I really like to go out of my way to give it a major plug because it deserves it. And this is definitely a film that deserves this. I mean, if you like films like say Get Out from last year, or films earlier this year, A Quiet Place or Annihilation, it's that level of intelligence that's brought to a horror film in this particular film, and that's what I really like about it. I'm very happy to see that this genre is starting to gain some traction. Because
it looks like the Brits are onto something then.
Well, it's not just the Brits. I mean, it's happening in this country too. But I mean, I really like the fact that smart horror is beginning to become more prevalent as a genre now, because like I say, I've never been a terribly huge fan of horror films.
I'm not a horror fan. No.
No, I mean, I think a lot of the ones that have come out over the past couple decades, they're cheap and they're lazy essentially with what they're trying to do. They're not terribly imaginative.
Yeah.
But when you find one that really attempts to try and do something more beyond just scare you, then yeah, it's worth my time, and it's worth recommending to other people if they want to get a little more substance with their story than just figuring out
Cool.
ways to freak you out.
All right.
So
What's up next?
okay.
Can't wait.
Okay, next we have a couple of brand new releases that are just making their way into theaters. The first one is The Old Man and the Gun, which is said to be Robert Redford's cinematic swan song.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he continues directing. I don't know if he's going to do any more on-screen work, but if it is his swan song as an actor, he goes out really well, because this is a warm, gentle, funny movie about a criminal folk hero who ends up robbing banks with incomparable politeness. So much so that the people who are in the banks just can't help but comply with whatever wishes he makes, saying, okay, you want the money, here it is. Never has to fire a shot, anything like that.
It's a totally endearing film. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's the kind of movie that, people say, well, why would he do something like that? And, in the end, it's the kind of thing that where he admits that this is something that he does because it makes him feel alive.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to just kind of roll over and, wait for the final curtain to fall, or do you want to do something that's still going to give you some sense
What's
of being
interesting, though, about this character is he spent more than half of his life in jail.
And always figured a way to get out.
Yeah. And he can always find his way out. But when you think about somebody who's a hardened criminal or somebody who always spends his life in jail, you don't think of a gentleman. You don't think of a guy who dresses up in a suit and is super polite and very, well-spoken and genteel, which is kind of how he comes off, right?
Yes.
And so there's a there's a dichotomy there that's kind of strange. It's like, how did he get to be that way? Because he would never have grown up that way or been, but here he spent all this time in jail, and yet here he is, this gentleman. And I just love Sissy Spacek in this movie with him, like, just beautiful.
Well, and the other thing that I found interesting too is that he's a character of supreme confidence in terms of the way he goes about what he does. I mean, he knows what he's doing, he knows how to do it, and he doesn't hesitate to draw upon his talents to get the results that he wants to get. Even so much as one of the scenes I loved in this movie is when he confronts the detective who's pursuing.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he's taunting the detective and saying, catch me.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. But I love the chase scenes because he just is like, there's so much joy on his face.
Yes.
Doing it. It's like, yes, come and get me. It's like I'm having the best time of my life, right? It's awesome. And then Danny says to me, my husband says, he goes, how did Robert Redford still have great hair? I mean, this guy has lost one head of hair off of his head, like nothing. He's got the thickest, most beautiful head of hair.
Well, he definitely looks great for 82. I mean, he definitely has not lost it. But something else when it comes to his looks, he's one of those actors who has purposely not had any cosmetic surgery.
Yes.
He's refused to get it done. And it's allowed him over the past, 20, 25 years to make films where he's got a face that's got character.
Yeah.
And that's something that in his earlier films, when he was the handsome heartthrob, that a lot of people didn't really get to see the acting ability because they were so focused on, God, he's handsome. God, he's handsome,
Yeah.
And fortunately, as he's gotten older, he's been able to kind of shed that a little bit more so that you can see really what his talent as an actor is. and not just as some pretty face on the screen.
But
I mean, he had,
people our age are looking at him going, oh my God, he didn't gain an ounce of weight. He's still got a full head of hair. Like, oh my God, how did this guy do this, right?
I mean, he
He
had
was
that
fabulous.
acting ability in his earlier films too, but
Yeah,
it just
he
got
did.
so overshadowed by his appearance that I don't think a lot of people necessarily took him seriously when he was younger, because they just said, oh, he's just, he's just a pretty face on the screen.
Yeah.
Well, now that he's older and he's not the the blatant pretty face that he was before, you're getting to see the talent come to the surface, and people are saying, wow, he's a really good actor. And it's like, he's always been a really good actor.
Yeah.
People couldn't see it.
Who was carrying in this film?
I believe he was one of the detectives.
Oh, he was one of the detectives. Yeah. Okay, because I was it when I saw Tom Waits, I'm like, yeah, he was the crew. But who was carrying? Because I couldn't.
Well, there were a lot of people in this movie who had really small roles, like Keith Carradine and also Elizabeth Moss, who has had like a really terrific career over the past couple of years, and she's in this very small role. And also John David Washington, Denzel Washington's son, who is the star of Black Klansman, which came over the summer, and he's pretty much just got a small walk-on role in this film. But
was he in the police station?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah,
he was the joint detective on the case.
Yeah.
So,
I think he's great.
So yeah, I recommend this one very highly. And the one thing I also want to say about this film too is that it featured a trailer that I don't really think did the film justice. Because when I saw the trailer for it initially, I was kind of like, I don't know, we'll see. If I got nothing to do that day, I'll go see it. But then I saw it got great reviews, and I thought, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. And when I came out of the theater, I said to myself, the trailer for this film definitely does not do this movie justice. So if you're thinking about seeing it, don't let just the trailer govern your decision about whether or not you want to go, because it's not the greatest one.
There you go. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so another new release is Beautiful Boy, which stars Steve Carell and Timothy Chalamet as a very loving father who's trying to help out his drug-addicted son. And this is a very heart-gripping kind of film to see a dad who's willing to do just about anything to try and help his son get help, that he really, has this kind of unconditional love for his teenage boy. And Timothy Chalamet, who made a name for himself in the film Call Me by Your Name, which I was not terribly impressed with. He gives a stellar performance in this film. I mean, this movie really shows the chops that he's got as an actor.
And he's fairly new too. I mean, wasn't Call Me by Your Name, wasn't that his first movie?
He had a few other ones before that. He had a small part in Lady Bird.
Oh yeah.
A small part in Interstellar. So I mean, he's been around for a little while, but Call Me by Your Name was sort of his breakout role. He was nominated for an Oscar for it, and I personally was not terribly crazy about that film for a lot of reasons.
Like I think I was reading that on this film, they wanted to hire an unknown, and they didn't realize that he would get so much attention for Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah. But he is terrific in this movie. And Steve
Carell too.
I'm sorry?
Steve Carell as well. I mean,
yes.
He does a great performance as a dramatic actor and as a comedian. Like he really does it all.
Well, he's really grown as an actor in the past couple of years, and with some of the other dramatic parts he did too, like Last Flag Flying last year, which was a movie that really got painfully overlooked, and unfortunately. But this is a very touching, warm film. It's a little bit formula. It's a little bit repetitive in terms of its script, but then, when you're dealing with a subject like drug addiction, you're going to have relapses as part of recovery. So that's kind of an inherent.
And it's based on a true story, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. David Sheff, the character that Steve Carell plays, is a fairly well-known freelance writer, and his son Nick, who Timothy Chalamet plays, has been trying to follow in his footsteps. So Yeah, this is a true story. It's based on the true story. I don't know if they've done any tweaking to,
Mm-hmm.
make it more screen worthy. But if even half of it is true, it's very, revelatory to watch in terms of seeing what a person goes through who's dealing with the pain of addiction, and also for those who are sitting by and watching. I
Yeah.
mean,
It's
it's a
painful all
case
the way
of,
around.
how do you help when somebody doesn't seem to want to get help or has trouble getting help?
Yeah.
And particularly for a parent who's having to learn learning the lesson of how to let go of your adult children.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah.
his son's character he's 18, so I mean technically he's of age. He's the person who should be governing his own decisions and so forth, but he's still his kid.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Can I
so
ask you just to stop sharing for a second? I'm
sure.
just gonna just let them let folks see that they're, and it will help me with the editing too later on. But just go back. I just want to just let folks just stop the share button. I didn't mean your voice. I meant the actual share button.
No. Let's see.
I just want them to see that there's real people here on Facebook Live.
Okay. Now my computer is acting up.
Oh no. I think you just click on it and say stop sharing. Anyway, you are listening to Frankie Says No More on the Good Radio Network and the Good Media Network, because we are both video and audio. So that's kind of fun. We've just been reviewing some movies here on Facebook Live, and we're going to continue to do that for the next few moments. But I was going to try to get us back to Facebook Live, but Brent's having some difficulties doing that. So that's okay. We'll just stay here. Again, excuse me, if you're enjoying this, please just hit the like button, and I promise that you'll see one of our faces a little bit later on before the end of the show. Okay, so let's move on from beautiful. Oh, I am looking forward though to the new movie Steve Carell's doing, coming out. It should be around Christmas time. It looks super interesting, very different. Do you know which one I'm talking about? I can't remember the name. I think it starts with Marma.
Oh, Marwan.
Yeah,
I can't remember the full title. Yeah.
That's crazy looking movie. He's like crazy, but looking pretty cool.
My computer seems to be having some problems, so unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get back to you just yet.
That's fine.
There we go.
That's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Just carry on. Okay, so because we're kind of, even though we did start late, we're kind of running out of time here, so we better keep moving.
Okay. So now we're going to talk about the movie that I don't recommend.
Me neither.
And that's the movie First Man, the story of Neil Armstrong. This was a much anticipated movie, and had a lot of things swirling about in terms of the interest in it and some of the controversies associated with it. And it was the kind of thing maybe that was designed to kind of help get people in the theaters. I'm not really sure, but in any case, I was really disappointed by this film. I generally don't talk about movies I wouldn't recommend on here or on the Good Media Network's blog page. But I felt like I couldn't ignore this one simply because there was so much hype associated with it.
No,
for a story that's as monumental as the first moon landing, you would think it would be interesting and exciting, and this is just plain boring.
It's a snore fest. Oh my God. I got dragged to this movie, and I thought, how many times do I have to go see an Apollo movie or first a Man on the Moon movie? Because that's what Danny loves. He loves those movies. And even though you know the story and he still wants to go see it again and again and again. So I went to this movie and I thought, okay, well, Ryan Gosling, we all love Ryan Gosling. I love Claire Foy. I think she's beautiful, and she's so expressive. And okay, great. I think we were both asleep like within minutes, and and I'm like, is this going to get better? Is this going to get better? I felt like a kid. Is this going to get better? Come on, and it just never went anywhere. And you look at a movie like Hidden Figures, which tackles similar, really a similar topic, getting to the moon, which was so much better, so much more exciting and inventive and creative than this. And I felt so bad for Ryan, really, because it should have been a better vehicle for him.
Well, I mean, I think we've become very accustomed to our space history films as being grand heroic adventures. Movies like Apollo 13, The Right Stuff, and in its own way, Hidden Figures, as you said. However, this one was trying to take a different approach because of the nature of Neil Armstrong's character. I mean, he was more contemplative, more cerebral, quiet, and they wanted the film to reflect that. Okay, that's fine, but don't make it boring in the process.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately what happened here. I mean,
folks, it was like watching paint dry.
Yeah, I mean, given the kind of character who Neil Armstrong was, I thought Ryan Gosling did a fine job in portraying him. That doesn't mean that the story was necessarily interesting.
No, it could have been way better writing, and it could have been much more interesting and in depth in the family. If you're going to do the family thing, well, then do the family thing.
Yeah.
Do it. You know, get these two individuals, husband and wife. Like, she was wonderful in her. She's so expressive, her eyes and everything, but they didn't give her much, to work with. And the neighbors, they were kind of non-existent, really, but they brought them in anyway. Like, nothing was developed, I felt.
Well,
really.
one of the things I thought was, it made me wonder at the end of the filming when I was watching the closing credits. I did actually manage to make it all the way to the closing credits. Is that one of the producers on this film was Steven Spielberg.
Yeah.
And it made me kind of wonder when I saw his name come up with it to think how much influence did he have in connection with this film, because as Spielberg has gotten older, his films have gotten to be bloated and sometimes kind of tedious. Now, even though he didn't direct this was directed by Damien Chazelle, who did Whiplash and La La Land.
Two amazing movies.
Well, I liked Whiplash. I didn't care for La La Land either.
Well, I loved Whiplash. Is probably one of my top 10 movies that I love. Yeah.
But when I saw Spielberg's name in association with it, just kind of made me wonder how much of a fingerprint was he leaving on this as a producer.
Yeah.
And because it just sort of had that kind of overextended bloat feeling that a lot of Spielberg's more recent films have had. As you were saying earlier, we don't want to tell people to waste their money going to movies. Well, here's one where you can save your money. I think
don't even watch it at home, but if you have to, at least watch it at home for free. Like, I felt like if he's going to be a contemplative character, then when he's silent, give him something to think about.
Yeah.
Exactly. What's going on in your head then? Not, oh, gee, I wonder what he's thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was the thing. It's like if you're going to show that kind of contemplative and cerebral approach, give us more of a clue of what really he's thinking about. I mean, he did suffer the personal tragedy of a loss of a daughter.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously that weighed very heavily on him. And it was something that kind of came up repeatedly during the course of the film. But I just kind of got the feeling that, well, that's not all that's on his mind. What else is there? It is on his mind, and why aren't you letting us know what it is? So,
because it's like, oh, the wife doesn't care that the daughter died, or they never talked about it as a couple, or they went on to have other kids. Like, nothing was developed I felt.
Yeah, and also, I mean, he lost a number of friends who were fellow test pilots and astronauts, and I'm sure that there was certainly a certain amount of weight on his shoulders, having the responsibility of being the person who was chosen to carry out this mission of being the first one on the moon. So, but bring that forward a little bit more. Don't make it so subtle that you have to kind of guess to say, okay, is this what is really weighing on him? Is this what's really on his mind?
Like, wasn't it kind of like by default? It made it seem like he got on the moon by default.
Yeah.
He wasn't supposed to be the guy. And he wasn't supposed to, and how did they pick who? There were two guys in the shuttle. Like, who got to pick who went out?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
So, I would say to the audience, skip this one. I don't think you're gonna.
Sorry, Ryan. We still like you.
Now, in closing, I want to talk about a couple of the movies that I recently saw at the recently completed Chicago Film Festival. I love going to film festivals because you get a chance to see stuff that you're not necessarily going to get a chance to see anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, the people who make these movies bring them to these things in part to kind of shop them around to distributors to see if they'll get picked up and go into general release. And if they get a favorable enough response, sometimes they do. Sometimes the talks are already in place, and this is a case to see definitively, okay, do we want to go ahead and take a chance on this movie and so forth. And it may not. And if you're an avid moviegoer like I am, sometimes if you don't see him at a festival like this, you won't see him anywhere.
Ever.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. That's
So
sad.
there were 5 movies that I saw. I want to talk about briefly that I really came away very impressed with. The first one is An Acceptable Loss, which is an American film, and that is getting picked up. That will be released in January. It's an edge of your seat political thriller starring Tika Sumpter and Jamie Lee Curtis, and this is by far the best on-screen performance I have ever seen Jamie Lee Curtis give.
Oh.
She is phenomenal. She is absolutely phenomenal in this role. And again, like when I was talking earlier about await further instructions and saying, I really want to encourage people to see a movie that is good and deserves to be seen. This is one of those films.
And Tika was just an old man with a gun.
Yes.
Yeah. So good for her.
Yeah, and actually she's in another movie coming out too. I can't remember which one it is, but like I say, the real star is Jamie Lee Curtis in this one. She's just terrific.
Wasn't she just in a new horror film too?
Yeah, she was in the remake of Halloween.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The updated Halloween.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been her stock and trade for 40 years.
Yeah.
It's nice to see her do movies that are a little different. And
but I liked Wanda. She was great in Wanda.
Yeah, she was.
She was lots of fun.
She was. but this one, I don't want to talk about it too much in detail because it's the kind of movie that is terrific at building suspense.
Awesome. I look forward to it then.
Yeah, I mean, as you're watching it, you get it keeps pulling you along. It just sort of dangles things.
Well, we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back in January when it comes out. We'll talk about it again.
So I would say definitely go see that one when it comes out.
And I think we'll release a movie list for just at Christmas time, for what you should go see over the holidays and coming up. Maybe we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next 2 are both comedies. One is from Cuba. It's called The Extraordinary Journey of Celeste Garcia.
And subtitles, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And the Brazilian comedy, Neurotic Quest for Serenity. The Celeste Garcia movie tells the story of a retired school teacher and planetarium volunteer who gets invited to join a contingent of humans who have been invited to go to the planet of aliens who had been living among us for a number of years. And she's not really sure that she wants to do it, but she decides to take a stab and to go see if it'll happen. And she's somebody who's experienced a lot of disappointment in her life. And as she's preparing to go on this journey, she meets with more disappointment because she has to work through a bureaucratic system to get prepared for it and so forth. And she's wondering, is this really worth it? Do I want to do this?
That's funny.
It is very funny in the way it tells the story, but it's also very touching in the fact that it's really as much about the characters and what they want out of life as it is about, the actual story that they're involved in. So this one premiered at the Toronto Film Festival back in September when it played in Chicago here. It was only the second time in North America that it's been shown. I don't believe it has a theatrical release planned as yet, but it's being shopped around, and when it does, I would say go see it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Then we have Neurotic Quest for Serenity from Brazil, which is a really wacky, wild, off of all kind of comedy that tells the story of a popular Brazilian telenovela star who's afflicted with OCD. And she's got this crazy career going around. She's surrounded by these crazy people, and she's trying to figure out what does she want out of life, what is she hoping for. And it seems that her colleagues are directing her more than she's making decisions for herself. And so between the combination of her OCD and some wild dreams that she's having, her reality from waking life and sleeping life and so forth, they're kind of blurring. She's trying to sort it out. So this is one of the most unusual films I have ever seen, but it is really funny. Really, really funny. If you love off-the-wall comedy, you'll love this movie.
Okay, cool.
And this one is available for streaming
on
Amazon. So
I'll watch it this weekend.
Don't know if it's going to get a theatrical release, but at least you always have that streaming option available. Okay. And the last 2, one is a German film called Sticks, which tells the story of a doctor who is very interested in botany. She decides to go on a trip to visit Ascension Island because it's a botanical paradise in the South Atlantic. So she said the only way to get there, though, is to sail. So she sails off toward this destination. And on her way there, she ends up encountering a ship of Black African refugees whose boat is sinking.
Okay.
And she's faced with, what do I do?
Mm.
So it's a morality play set at sea. And you can imagine just from the title that the allusions have to do with matters of life and death when you're talking about Styx.
Right.
Wonderful solo performance by Suzanne Wolf in the lead role. Beautifully filmed, gripping story, lots of metaphysical and spiritual imagery in it, and also some very damning political and social commentary in terms of who gets saved and who doesn't.
Yeah.
This one does not have a theatrical release planned in North America yet, as far as I know. However, it's played at a number of festivals in Europe and it's gotten a lot of recognition. So I would not be too surprised to see this one get picked up and see it playing.
I'd really like to see it. Sounds good.
It's really good. And even if it doesn't get picked up, I'm sure it'll be available for streaming at some point. So
cool.
I recommend this one really highly. The last one is a French movie. Again, it's another comedy called The Trouble with You, which is kind of a modern day screwball comedy in a lot of ways. Excuse me. It tells the story of a policewoman whose deceased crooked husband, who was also a detective, was on the take for his entire career. And she's rather disillusioned when she learns this, especially when she finds out that there's somebody who was involved with one of the capers that he was the arresting officer on, that got somebody thrown into jail who was innocent. Oh. And when he gets out, she sort of tries to take him under her wing to make amends for what her husband did. Unfortunately, being in jail changed him. And instead of being the nice, normal, sweet person that he was, he's now kind of crazy and off the wall himself. So she's constantly trying to intervene to, sort of ameliorate some of what he's doing. And it sets it up for a wide array of really crazy situations involving her and some other colorful characters that are in the film. This one, I saw it in a nearly sold out showing at the festival.
Oh, wow.
I mean, people were just laughing their heads off watching this. It was really funny.
Well, it was the winner.
Yeah, it really was. So, and it was a winner of the Directors Fortnight Award at the 2018 Cannes Film Festival. So even though there's no theatrical release planned at the moment, given its track record at festivals, I wouldn't be surprised to see this maybe get picked up either for streaming or for maybe a limited theatrical release at some point. So again, that's The Trouble with You from France. Really classic French farce, quite enjoyable. Go see it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brent, for that wonderful review of all these movies. I'm really excited. And I think you guys should be too. You got some great viewing ahead of you, whether it's at the theater or Amazon or someplace like that. And don't let those foreign films, don't let them trouble you. Like, I promise you, once you start watching them and the subtitles, you don't even need them anymore practically. You don't even realize that you're reading them. The acting and the stories are so great. And for me, I've always just really loved foreign film. I'm a lover of foreign film. There's some amazing directors, countries around the world. I love, Japanese. I love the Chinese. I love, the Italians and the French. And the Australians are great, even though they're in English. But there's
I call it developing
around the world.
Yeah, I call it developing your subtitle muscle.
Yeah,
it's something that, the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it. So it doesn't really get to be an issue after a while.
Yeah, I mean, if you're really tired late at night, yeah, maybe not. But you know what? If it's a good movie, you'll get into it and you won't even realize that you're reading it anymore.
Oh, exactly. And in the case of some of the films that I saw here, with the three comedies in particular, a lot of the humor involves sight gags.
Yeah.
So I mean, you don't even have to read anything to get the joke. You can laugh at that, and you're perfectly fine. As for the German film Styx, that's actually mostly in English. There's very little German in it. because she's at sea and the international language of communicating is English. If she's going to be sailing, she has to speak English to to let people know what she's thinking and so forth. So it's it's the kind of thing where you're not even having to worry about reading a whole lot of subtitles in that film. So.
All right. Well, we're going to go off Facebook Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you hit that like button. If you didn't, please hit it now. We really appreciate that, and it helps get our videos out to a further larger audience. I can't even speak anymore. But Brent, thank you so much. Goodbye, Facebook, and goodbye, one and all. And we will see you next week on Frankie Sense and More.